Is the swim the part of the Ironman that you're most concerned about? Maybe you've decided you just need to spend more time swimming, so you're sure you can complete the whole distance. If that's the case, I think you could potentially be making a big mistake. In this video, I'll be explaining a better way to approach training for your Ironman swim, and I'll also be answering other questions from real-world athletes training for Ironman. I'm Coach Rob Wilby from Team Oxygen Addict. Let's get to it. Okay, first question. I'm a weaker swimmer. Should I just focus on doing more swimming and doing longer swims so I'm sure that I can complete the distance? It's a great question. It's a really common one. And typically it's from athletes who want to do an Ironman and they've come from a running or a cycling background, sports where just doing more of the sport has brought them success in improving at the sport. So the temptation is to think, I'll just do the same thing in swimming. I'll dedicate the time to getting into the pool. I'll do more swimming and my swimming will improve. And it's often not the case for athletes. Especially we tend to find this with highly motivated athletes who are very good at one of the other two sports. They tend to not have very much technique if they've not swum as a kid. And the challenge is the dedication that they've got to this and the mindset that they bring to it is fantastic, but it's also part of the problem. Because what tends to happen is if you're essentially practicing incorrect technique over and over again, what you're doing with that extra training is you're embedding that poor technique into your stroke, and it'll make it much more hard to fix in the long term. So the dedication is a good thing, but it's a challenge that essentially swimming is different to running and cycling in that it's a skill-based sport more than it's an aerobic fitness-based sport. And it's about doing the right body motions repeatedly so that you can do them effectively and efficiently. And if you're not a very good swimmer, just doing more swimming, it'll make you a slight bit better. But the thing that's really going to improve your swimming is the correct swim drills that are going to correct the things that are wrong with your stroke. So typically, if you're already a good runner or cyclist, but you're not very good in the pool, maybe you've gone down to a tri-club session and you've been put in the slowest lane, and you're thinking, the guys or the women who look as fit as me are in lane 1 and 2, and I'm over here in lane 6. Typically, that's just down to the fact you haven't developed the stroke technique yet, the balance in the water yet. Those are the things you need to practice more than trying to swim endless lengths and getting really out of breath and often getting really frustrated with it. If your swimming is much slower than your fitness would suggest, there's something going on with your stroke that is acting like an invisible parachute that's holding you back in the water and it's slowing you down from swimming to your potential. If you can correct that, you cut the invisible parachute off and you'll actually start swimming to your potential. So it's not fitness that's the problem, it's the technique. And the drills are the things that are going to change the way you swim. I'll talk a little bit later on about specific drills you can do. But one great thing you can do is find yourself a swimming club or a swimming coach who's experienced in this. A good coach seeing one length of you swimming can often immediately see the one thing that you need to change about your stroke next. It might be that you've got sinking legs. It might be that you're lifting your head to breathe. It might be that despite you feeling as though you're pulling really hard, there isn't actually any force being applied to the water. All of these things are things that experienced coaches like myself have seen hundreds and thousands of times before. They're really simple to fix. They're not easy because you're going to have to apply time and effort to it, but they're simple to fix once you start doing the right and the correct drill to fix it. Okay, just really quickly, if you're thinking about your first Ironman, our Ironman Accelerator program gives you the structure, the support, and the expert coaching you need to get to the start line confident and ready. You can watch our free coaching webinar. The link's in the description. Next question. How can I maintain my technique during longer endurance swims? Okay, so great question leading on from that first one. As athletes start to progress up the swimming ladder, they start to develop the better technique, the better body position, the better rotation. They find they can do this early in the swim, but then as they start to get tired, that falls apart. And typically this is where old school masters swim workouts really fail the adult onset swimmer. I remember going down to a swim club in the early days, and the set we were given was something like 5 by 500 meters after a warm-up. My swimming wasn't at a point yet where the stroke would hold together for more than 100 meters. So my first 100 was really okay. It was probably 140 at this point. But then quickly my stroke fell apart as I got tired, and it went from 140 to 150 to 155 to 158. And those long swims just embedded poor technique into me. So instead of trying to do long repetitions or long endurance swims, or even, God forbid, trying to swim 3.8K in one go in the early days, a much better way to go about this is to break the swim up into micro breaks. So you take a 3 to 5 second break after 100 meters, you take a couple of deep yoga breaths, and you go again. Now, this isn't interval training. You're not taking the break because you need to get your breath back. The reason is that short break lets the little muscles in your shoulders, your back, your neck, all of those things that are small and weak and aren't developed yet, give them a little break. They get to recover. And so when you go again on the next 100, those muscles have had a chance to recover, and you can hold and practice good technique for all of your swim. So the example here, if we were doing a 2,000 meter main set, the example I gave you before, if your technique is falling apart after 100 meters, the next 1,900 meters of swimming is just going to be embedding the wrong technique. If we think about other skill-based sports like golf or tennis, it would be like going down to the golf or tennis club and deliberately practicing the wrong thing for 30 or 40 minutes. You can see how absurd that is in the context of tennis or golf, and it's equally absurd in the context of swimming. So I'm going to get you to take that micro break. And even if the break needs to be longer initially, if you need to take 10 seconds to recover, it means that every 100 meters you swim, you're practicing good technique, and let your fitness develop as a byproduct of practicing good technique rather than swimming more to develop the fitness. You've got to practice perfect technique, because there's that old line, isn't there? Practice makes perfect. Now, in the context of swimming, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Practice just makes permanent. And if what you're doing is incorrect, then it's embedding that incorrect stroke in there full time. Next question. How should I approach my breathing pattern during race-paced swims? Okay, so I'm going to wind this back and we'll go away from race-paced swims and we'll go into all swims. Breathing pattern is the thing that can hold back adult onset swimmers the most, because it's obviously very different to biking and to running. You can only breathe in as your head is turned to the side and your mouth is out of the water. That's obvious. Something that isn't so obvious is you need to be breathing out into the water. And something we see in beginner swimmers is they're turning their head to the side, but they're trying to both breathe out and in at the same time. So get used to breathing out into the water and get used to turning your head to the side and breathing in, so you can dedicate all of that time when your mouth is above water to breathing in. And so in order to pace your swim correctly, it's tempting to think, I can swim as hard as I like, I'll just breathe more often. What we find is you're better thinking of it the other way around. You're better limiting the pace of your swim by how often you can swim, and you're better learning to breathe bilaterally. That means breathing on both sides alternately every third stroke. If you can do that, even if it means slowing down your swims initially, you will embed the correct stroke technique in there, because you are going to work out any inefficiencies that are caused by only turning over to one side. Again, if we go back to the analogy of golf or tennis, you would never go to a tennis club and only practice the forehand, because you'd expect not to be very good at the backhand stroke. You have to practice breathing on both sides, because it's going to even out your stroke. And even if you've swum for years and you can't breathe on your offside or your weaker side, what we often find is when athletes do go to this, it actually improves their swimming overall. It'll slow them down in the short term, but the way that they learn to balance their body as they turn to breathe on their weak side can then positively affect their breathing on what was previously their strong side and balance their stroke out. So I'd always advise people to learn to breathe bilaterally, even if it means you have to slow down a little bit initially. And I would say for Ironman athletes, even though it's going to be difficult to swim bilaterally on race day if you haven't practiced this, if you have practiced it, it will become natural. And the fact you can then choose which side to breathe on means that if the water's choppy on race day, you can breathe away from the chop. If the sun's rising in one direction, you can breathe away from it and not have to look into the sun. You're very limited if you can only breathe on one side. So I'd always advocate learning to breathe bilaterally. What are the most effective swim drills to improve my stroke? Well, this is a really complex answer. And in simple terms, the correct answer here is the drill that's going to improve your particular stroke floor is the correct one for you to be doing. So you really need to be seen by a coach, and you need to learn what the one thing is that's standing in the way of you improving at the moment, and practice that drill first to minimize and reduce and eventually get rid of that stroke floor before moving on to the next thing. So I'm a big advocate of only working on one thing at once here. But I'll talk you through a couple of the ones that we tend to find are really useful for athletes. If you're trying to improve your swim, it's almost guaranteed that one or both of these two are the problem. It's either going to be your body position in the water, meaning that your legs sink down underneath the water and you're essentially like a boat trying to push water out of the way. And the other thing is applying force to the water. And usually that's caused because underneath the water, as you put your arm in and start the pull and the catch, in new to swimming athletes, they tend to drop their elbow under the water and the arm slides back behind them. What we ideally want to see is from fingertip all the way to elbow, using all of this as a paddle. So if you're someone who needs to add more power to the stroke, the fist drill is the best way to do that. Simply involves swimming a length with your hands made into a fist rather than having your hands out like paddles. This will completely take away your sense of the feel for the water on your palm, and it'll mean if you're currently slipping back through the water, you'll feel it immediately, and your body will be forced into levering you into this position where you start to use your forearm to pull against under the water. So really simply, you do one length of the fist drill and swim back again. Feel how it feels. If it feels terrible at first, that's actually good. That's revealing to you the thing that you need to fix in your stroke. So if you can then apply the fist drill to this as you're swimming back on the length when you're swimming with normal technique again, yes, your hand comes back into it, but you've got to work on maintaining that feeling of pulling the water with your forearm. So that's the best drill for helping add some power to your stroke. If your body position is one of those with sinky legs at the moment, the best thing you can do for that is the 6-3-6 drill. Now, this is simply where you're going to take 6 kicks, 3 strokes, and then 6 kicks again. But crucially, the 6 kicks are going to be having you kick with your body balanced on the side, one arm stretched out in front of you. And then you're going to effectively learn to be balancing as if you're pressing down onto a ball underneath your armpit. That's the way to think of it. So you can look up the 6-3-6 drill online and get a good view for how to do that. The key to this is it's tempting, and you often hear this. If you've got sinky legs, people say, well, use a pull buoy. That's going to correct it. The pull buoy isn't going to correct it. It's going to lift your bottom closer to the surface, but it isn't going to address the thing that's making your legs sink, which is that you're not leaning down into your armpit as you're at the front of your stroke, and so you're not rotating fully. So the 6-3-6 drill will fix that. Again, it'll feel hard at first, but what you'll find is it will correct the floor behind all of this, and therefore you'll go to swimming with a much better body position. Next question. How do I improve my sighting technique for open water? Well, you can practice this in the pool. This is a really good tip for people. Your technique will be different in open water because you'll probably have to sight every 3 to 5 strokes to make sure you're still going straight. If you think of your traditional swimming in a pool, you'll probably never lift your head up to look forwards as you're swimming. You're always looking down at the black line. So as you're moving towards open water swim season and race season, just introduce this into your swim practice. Twice every length, lift your head so you look at something at the end of the pool. Now, whether that's a water bottle that you've put there, whether that's the diving blocks that's there, it doesn't really matter what it is, but have something there that you're going to raise your head to look at, and just practice looking at it twice every length. That's going to firstly get you used to the idea of how your body balance changes and how your stroke changes as you lift your head to sight. In the early days, it doesn't matter how you lift your head to sight, just get in the habit of doing it. And there are 2 real ways you can then go on to refine your technique. The first is you can lift your head fully up out of the water, look forwards, and then turn your head to breathe to the side, and then put your head back down into the water. That's the first method. The second method is a little bit more complex, and it's called crocodile eyes. And what this involves doing is simply raising your eyes above the water level, so just your goggles come above the water level, and then popping your head back down before turning to breathe at the side. Now, the difference between these two is the crocodile eyes one. It's harder to sight initially until you get practiced at doing it. But because you're not lifting your head all the way up out of the water, your legs are not going to sink down behind you. So it's slightly faster and it's slightly more efficient. But again, in the early days, you just need to get used to practice lifting your head in a way that you can clearly see and sight on something at the end of the pool. As you transition over into open water, you need to look at something on the shore in the background and line that up with the buoy that you're swimming to. Because if you're just looking at the buoy, you won't get a sense of whether you're moving left or right relative to that buoy. Typically, on race day, the buoys tend to be 500, 600, 800 meters apart sometimes. So just having the buoy to look at isn't great. If you can line up the buoy with something on the shore in the background, you can then keep a good idea of whether you're swimming in a straight line, and that's the great thing to aim for.